Welcome, everybody, to the dog days of the basketball fantasy offseason. I am Dan Besbris, and this is Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. We are into the NBA Finals, which, on its surface sounds fun, and it's good so far. It's a 1-1 finals battle. But the problem is the finals happen somewhat irregularly. Game 1 was Thursday. Then there were 2 days off between games in Oklahoma City. I have beef. There are another 2 days off between the game yesterday on Sunday and the one in Indiana on Wednesday. I get it. A travel day is fine. A rest day is great. Do we really need 2 days off between basically every single finals game? They go Friday again later this week, and then they go 2 days off before Monday of next week. Let's assume, I think the series has to go that far, right? That'd be game 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So the finals, at the very least right now, will take 11 days. At the least. If, heaven forbid, this series ends up 2-2 after 4 games, or we have to play 6, it goes all the way to the 19th of June. That's 2 full weeks and a day after the finals started. That is 15 days later. Where would the last game of the finals be? The 22nd? My God, people. The finals would max out at, if you include the 5th and the 22nd in your counting, 18 days. How is that reasonable? It's not. The pace of the finals, and I've said this for years, the pace of the finals is so painfully slow. It's so painfully slow that I think I myself as like in the 1% most avid NBA fans on earth, I can't stick with it. I can't pay attention to 7 basketball games over 18 days. It's too freaking long. 15 has to be the absolute max. I'd love it if it was less than that, but I don't think it would be. But you got all these 2 days off in between everything. What do we need 2 days off between the games for? Oh, my Lord. So I'm like at a point now where I'm basically just catching up on the finals after they happen. Because I got life. I can't plan around this. When the playoffs are going and there's a game, at least one game every single day, that's awesome. When there's a game every other day, I can usually swing it because at least I can be like, oh, was there one yesterday? No? Okay, great. There's one today. When it's like every 3, this crap ain't football. I don't need 3 games in 3 weeks. So from a fantasy standpoint, not only is the basketball barely happening, we haven't had fantasy in 2 months already, and the finals just stretch out so long that it pushes free agency all the way to July. The NBA draft has to get pushed. What day is the NBA draft this year? NBA draft 2025 is June 25th and 26th. Yeah, I mean, so that's the same thing. Like if the finals ended on the 22nd, the draft will be 3 to 4 days later. Why? Because it has to be. And then there's a week before free agency. So things certainly pick up after we can get these stupid finals over with. I'm sorry to frame it like that because it's a great series. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think. I don't know. I mean, I assume OKC probably comes out on top, but we've thought that about whoever's playing the Pacers all playoffs long, and here they are in the finals. But you guys didn't come for that. Hopefully you enjoyed my show opening rant, which has nothing to do with the topic of today's show, but I just, once per calendar year, I have to come on here and bitch about how long it takes to get through this stinking NBA Finals. Here's what I want to do today. You may recognize the graphic that I just put up on the screen. It's my buckets, and we spent 3 shows last week talking about these buckets, but I thought it might be kind of fun to do a 4th show on them, but not about what's already done, but about what's to come. Although here I am complaining about the dog days. BetOnline keeps the dog days of summer rolling with the largest selection of odds on everything. Updated odds on baseball, UFC, boxing, tennis, NFL futures. I'm actually just sitting and waiting until NBA futures get their back in the thing. BetOnline remains the best online source for all sports wagering info. BetOnline is also the world's most trusted betting platform, which might actually be the most important thing about it. You got the NBA Finals, NHL stuff, I think is still going on. What the hell do I know? But here's the fun part, if the other stuff wasn't good enough for you. Live in-game betting while the action is taking place on your TV screen. Get down on it. I wasn't going to sing it, and then I did, and then it was way off key. Get down on it. BetOnline Casino is also available if you'd like to take a trip to the tables. They've got all the top Vegas-style games, including poker. You can play live casino with other humans. You can play not live casino with not live other humans. You got over 20 different types of blackjack alone down at BetOnline. The game starts here. So here's what we want to do today. You guys can watch me do it in real time. I thought we could just take like 20 to 25 minutes today for me to talk through the concept of building your own buckets. Because perhaps you don't agree with mine, nor should you agree with mine entirely. I'm going to get a few things wrong. As you can see on your screen, I got quite a few things wrong. We got more right than wrong. It's why this season was, at least for my own personal bankroll, the single best season I've ever had in fantasy basketball. I was able to purchase a high-octane new laptop with my share of some winnings. I split the bankroll with a first cousin of mine. Could have bought 2 laptops if I didn't split the bankroll. Not the point. Point here is, for one, let's start at the top. Why do I think buckets are the way to go? Well, because a traditional rank board is, well, for one, it doesn't make any sense for the way we draft for competitive fantasy basketball leagues. And for 2, that doesn't make any sense either. Number 2, not for 2, for me, for you, for all of us. 2, it's impossible to rank players 1 through whatever number you want, however many names you wanted to do in the rank board. What did we do in buckets? I did 143, and then we got into spillage of like another 15 to 16 names that I didn't think were super relevant, but I didn't want to take them fully off the board. So we probably had, I've moved my computer, somehow I've moved my monitor, and I can no longer see the scrolling bar over on the far right side. What is this? 37 to 51. There's like 160-ish names on this board, roughly. It was 158, 159, something like that. It's impossible. What if you had asked me at the beginning to put these 159 names in exact numerical order for where they're going to finish? Problem is, I mean, if you look at the numbers here, Devin Booker, that's not a good example. Cat would have been between 13 and 16 on my list, which by all accounts would have been wrong. But what's actually more important here is, how did Cat stack up against the consensus rank? And I had him 1 bucket early. So even though it was not a perfectly accurate ranking in the traditional sense, it was a win. James Harden, we had all the way up in the bucket that would have contained players 8 and 9, which is technically too early for him because he was number 15 on a per game basis. But by totals, he was awesome. And we were way early on him, which again is a win, even if we didn't get the exact ranking right. The buckets give you, first of all, some wiggle room in terms of like, oh, if you have 6, 7 players in a bucket and you're off by 5 or 6 in your actual rank of the player, they're still spot on. But also, it allows you to say, and maybe this is the way of the future, am I early or am I late on a particular player? Do I like them or dislike them against consensus, or do I feel like their consensus rank is pretty much right? Like, I think we had De'Aaron Fox slightly behind. That's not a great example here. We were basically right on consensus with who up at the beginning of the board? Domantas Sabonis, I think? Or was he going earlier than that? I think this is where he ended up at the end. I think we were like right on consensus with Domantas Sabonis, and he pretty much finished there. And so that's like, okay. Does that mean I got that one right? I mean, yeah, but also, who cares? What you guys care about is, are we attacking a guy? Are we fading a guy? And then, yeah, I mean, I guess it does matter if we're sort of like take him on consensus, because if the guys we're attacking are gone and the guys we're fading are gone, then those are the dudes that you fall to. Anyway, point is, it's impossible to list these players numerically, 1 through, again, X, N, whatever letter you'd like to use for that value, because you're not going to get them right. And you might be off by 6 or 7 slots, which makes you seem like you were wrong by half a round. But really, once you get outside the top, I don't know, like 30, the gap between player values is so small. We've talked about this before. Like, the gap between player 1 and player 12 is the same as the gap between player 12 and player 100. That's bat bleep crazy, but that's what it is. Like, there's no difference in fantasy value between player 55 and player 65. They're basically the same to your fantasy team. All that matters is which categories are they hitting, and did it work for your team? We get so caught up in this, like, did I win or lose a trade based on a half round or a round of value? But a round of value between the 6th and 7th round is nothing. Player 72 and player 84, like, their values are separated by a little. A little. It's not zero, but it's little. Frankly, sometimes the gap is even smaller. The gap between 72 and 84 is actually bigger than the gap between 60 and 72. That's by chance, basically. Gap between 84 and 96, almost non-existent. Quite literally, in value, the gap between 87 and 90 is 0. They are the same. So you get into these areas where 4 or 5 guys literally have the exact same fantasy value. And to expect an analyst to say, oh, this guy should be 87 and this guy should be 92 or whatever the hell I just said, that's nuts. And it's impossible. So the buckets, in my eyes, begin to solve a little bit of that problem. Not all of it, but it gives the analyst a little bit of wiggle room, and it gives all of us a better way to interpret what we, analysts, are saying to you, consumers of analysis. Okay, so that's why buckets. It's easier, for one. Yeah, a little bit of a cop-out, I guess, but it also, again, remains dumb for me to try to tell you the difference between player 52 and 58, because there isn't really any. Is there a difference between player 30 and 58? Yeah, absolutely. But that's why they're not going to be in the same bucket. I'm not going to have 35 guys in the same damn bucket. I'm going to have 6, 7. And it's also why the buckets contain more players as we work our way down the board, because the difference in value between these guys becomes smaller and smaller. The early buckets all have 2, 3, 4 players in them. And then all of a sudden you get to like a 6. Not all of them are 6, but there's a 6 in there, a 7, a few 7s. As you get into the 18, 19, 20, 21 bucket range, now you start to see 10, 12, 11, that kind of thing. So it does reflect the fact that I think a lot of these guys are going to end up similar in value. And then you have to get even farther down the rabbit hole of, well, what about punt builds? Does this guy, if you're punting free throws or field goal or whatever, does that guy now serve a greater purpose than just taking the guy who might be ranked higher overall? That, by the way, is why the -1 rank board comes into play, removing a player's weakest category. I don't think we should do that for everyone. That's where I feel like I think there's a lot of value in putting all of these things together. I think the totals rank board serves a purpose. I think the per game rank board serves a purpose. I think the -1 serves a really nice purpose as well. I think the buckets serve a purpose. And, our job is to try to put all of this data together and feed you something that you can easily interpret. Because my goal since day one, way, way back on the old show, has been to simplify fantasy basketball. Where whoever, analysts here at Old Man Squad, across the fantasy scape, all of our good buddies that did over 90 guest appearances on this show in the last calendar year, where we can do 60 hours of analysis, allows you to do 5, that kind of thing. Like, we'll do all the work, you do 5 to 10% of the work, and you can get almost the exact same results. Simplify. I want to make this digestible. I want to simplify it so you can put in an hour a day and we can put in a full-time job's worth a day. And you can win just like us. It's why I constantly end up in leagues with people who listen to my show, and I lose to some of those people. I'm telling them what to do on a day-to-day basis. I'm not going to do better than you guys if you're taking the exact things that I'm telling you to do and doing them. But anyway, back to the main topic on today's show. What do you do if you feel like my buckets get you most of the way there, but you actually do want to do a little bit more work? So we've already done 15 minutes of ranting on the NBA Finals and explaining why this concept is the one I like to lean into, which, by the way, we'll do this again when we get into the draft season. Whatever. It was pretty close to the end of it. It was like 1 week before the season started. I did the full mega Dan's bucket analysis show. It was a very long one. It was like an hour and whatever minute show, which I don't usually like to do. But I didn't think it made sense to split that into multiple episodes. You guys probably heard my kid pop in, and now I lost my train of thought. So here's what we're going to do over the last 10, 12 minutes of this show, which I blew like half of the time on random other stuff, but it's the offseason. You guys know what I do. Let's just go through the starting process. If you guys, because I think that's probably the biggest hurdle for a lot of folks to get over, is like, where do I even begin if I wanted to make anything resembling my own buckets? So let's just do it together. You have access, by the way, to this Google Sheet that I've worked through, that you guys have seen. If you watch the show, if you've listened to it, you've heard me talk about it. It's been the link in every single show description for about the last 350 shows that we've done on this channel. You can quite literally go into this and you can copy it. I don't care. I don't know if you can do an actual copy paste because you guys have viewing access and not editing access, but you can definitely just open up 2 tabs side by side and copy the format if you like it. If you don't, I don't give a crap. Do something else yourself. So here I am down at the bottom. I'll right click on the tab and I'm going to duplicate it. And we're going to move it over to the front of my list. And this is now the 2025 buckets draft season. Got a new title for it. We're going to change this up here. It's the 2025 buckets. We're going to remove this link because the full show doesn't exist. And now we're going to have a whole lot of fun because we're going to zoom out so that I can see a whole row at the same time. And we're just going to delete everybody. And we'll play, I'll hum what I think might have been like old Final Fantasy game music while I do it. And now we're going to change all the color coding back to nothing. And there you go. You got a brand new, completely fresh, no names to speak of buckets. The nice thing too here now is, because I've done this once before, I think the number of buckets is going to stay not exactly the same, but close. Like, now we know, because I've always worked with buckets to some degree, but I've often just sort of penned them on a scratch sheet that I've had in front of me so that I could talk about it on shows and have something to refer to in drafts. But I did a lot of it in my head. This is the first fantasy draft season where I really wanted to put everything down on the screen so that all of you guys can see, heaven help you, the way my brain operates. What do you do now? Okay, you've got your, what I guess is, it's 26 buckets and spillage is what we had this past season. And it might be the same or it might be different. Bucket 23 was where we got to top flyers this last year. That might change for this next season as well. Here's what I would recommend doing if you want to simplify the next part of the process. Because the next part, and again, we're not at free agency yet, so a lot of stuff is going to change. Roles are going to change. Summer League will make very, 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 very small tweaks to it. Training camp will make tweaks to it, but free agency is certainly going to be the big one. What you want to do to, again, make this situation easy, I would say go to Basketball Monsters player rank page, which, I mean, I guess I can share that right now, right? Here, this is quick and easy. Boom, there it is. Basketball Monsters player rank page. The link is not in my show description, but it's pretty easy to find. I feel pretty confident that if you just Google search Basketball Monster NBA player rankings, it's the first result. So just Google what I just said, and this link will be the first one you can go to. So we'll zoom in a little bit on that. Hopefully you guys can see the names on the screen. What I haven't done is set it. This date range goes to today. Let's set the ending date for season ended, I think, on April 13th, right? There we go. All right. So this is a list of how everybody did on a per game basis during the regular season this past NBA campaign. So simple. Just go to the players here on the board and start very rough. Don't overthink it. Put them in buckets. Start at the top. Make your life simple. Let's go back to the bucket sheet so you guys can see it as we do it. Bucket 1, Nikola Jokic. That's an easy one. You guys are going to see whenever I have little typos as I'm going. We can zoom in again so you guys can see what we're working on here. Full screen is good also. Okay, who was next on the list? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Does he belong in bucket 1 with Jokic? Yeah, he probably does. Next one from this year, Victor Wembanyama. Does he belong in bucket 1 with those top 2 guys? Honest to goodness, I don't really know how I feel about it yet. I'm going to put Victor in the top bucket because we don't know what the blood clot situation is. And if it turns out that there's any problem there, then we'll shift him down a little bit. And so right now, I'm also going to put a little 3 here at the bottom of bucket 1. So I know how many players are in it, and that'll keep track of kind of how far along we are on our list of guys. Are you all bored yet? I hope not, because we're going to do a little bit more of this. It's not going to be all that much today, because again, I just want you guys to get a feel for this process. Did I just screw that up? I might have screwed that up. No, I guess that still works. Okay. I was going to make a couple of tabs, and now I'm realizing that, yeah, that does screw it up a little bit. Okay. We'll continue the way we were doing it. Next one on the per game list was Anthony Davis. He definitely does not belong in bucket 1. I'm going to put him in bucket 3 until we figure out where everybody else goes, and we can always reassess that. Next was Tyrese Halliburton, who kind of feels like he belongs in bucket 2 right now, but we can move him around as we see fit as well. Cat was behind Halliburton and Luka. They were sort of tied there. I feel like this Cat Luka thing, do these guys go with these other? Yeah, I mean, you could probably go Halliburton, Karl Anthony Towns, Luka Doncic, all in bucket 2. Do we have AD behind those guys still, even though he's better per game? I don't know, but we're going to leave it for now. Damian Lillard was the next one on the list. We can just skip right over him because he's out for the season, most likely, with a torn Achilles. Steph Curry was number 9. It feels like he probably belongs behind Anthony Davis, but I might end up combining those guys depending on how we look at it. Steph did get into 70 games this year compared to AD's 51. You're starting to see a little bit of a gap in the per game ranking. Tyrese Maxey was the next one. I got to move him down. And I don't really know how far we move Maxey. We'll just put him in bucket 5 until we get through the rest of these guys, because presumably Joel Embiid will be back in there and Paul George will be back in there. And so Maxey's not going to get to take 21 shots a ball game. Kevin Durant was number 11 this last year. And, I'll just put him with Maxey for now. These are guys that I kind of want to this is almost like a holding bucket at the moment. Bucket 5 is a holding bucket while we figure out what else is going to happen. Kyrie Irving is next. He's out probably for the year, so I'm not going to bother putting him on the rank board. Jason Tatum was after him. I'm also not going to put him on the rank board. And now you get to Dyson Daniels, who, as amazing as he was, there's just absolutely no reason to draft him with some of these other names that we're putting up. I love Dyson. He was incredible. But obviously, and this is a little bit like the Victor Wembanyama dilemma from this last year. A lot of the Dyson Daniels rank is tied up in one category. And we talked about this with Wemby. It was one of the big reasons why I didn't want to draft him first, was because if you turn blocks off, Victor fell last year. He fell from first round to like third round. This year, he fell from beginning of first round to end of first round. So it was better because he improved on a lot of his other categories, and the blocks were at 3.8 instead of 4.5. But anyway, you kind of get the idea. It's sort of like the reverse punt thing. Instead of a -1 ranking, it's almost like a +1 where you're removing, or -2, you remove the worst or you remove the best. If you take away steals, Dyson Daniels falls from early second round to number 132, which again, you're not going to take away steals. That's part of his identity, but you're also not getting a player to build around. And at the beginning of your draft board, you've got to be targeting guys that create an identity for your team. And Dyson Daniels, again, not taking anything away from him, getting him in the 120s where we got him in almost every draft this last year was an incredible find. He was really only a positive in one category. He was a good rebounder for someone who had guard eligibility. That was also nice. And then everything else was like, meh. Terrible foul shooter for a guard, pretty good field goal for a guard, and amazing steals. That was the story. So Dyson, I can't in good conscience put him up here with these other guys. I got to put him all the way down in like bucket 8, and we'll see who else is filled in by the time we get there. James Harden is the next one on the list. I don't know about replicating this past year in terms of health, but he was very good, and so I'm tempted to put him back up in bucket 4 near Steph, although Steph was quite a bit better on a per game basis, so I might ultimately come back and flop those two, and maybe I move Maxey and Durant down a bucket, and perhaps James Harden is now the actual beginning of bucket 5. Okay. I think the only thing we've pretty much locked in is the first bucket has those 3 guys, and I don't know that they're going to shift a whole lot. Anthony Edwards was number 16 this last year, who is also very durable. It kind of feels like you have to just put him with Harden because they were almost the exact same production this season. I'd rather have Harden with the higher turnovers and then the much higher assists, but I get it if you want Ant and the better scoring. Nikola Vucevic was number 17. There's almost no way that happens again. So let's just put him down here with Dyson Daniels in bucket 8 as basically, again, this is like this is our secondary holding bucket because Maxey and Durant were in the first hold bucket. Daniels and Vooch are in the second hold bucket. And here's what happens is we're going to fill in guys across these first few buckets. And then Maxey and Durant are going to get pushed down maybe, or maybe not. Maybe KD stays in bucket 6. And then at some point, 7's going to fill up and 8's, we're going to need 8. And we might push some of those guys down. Vooch probably would be the one that gets moved a little bit there. Jamal Murray was number 18. I'm going to put him in this same holding bucket because I haven't decided what bucket he's going to go in yet. Whoopsies, typo. As I just don't know. Domantas Sabonis at number 19. Okay, well, he's one that to me is going to have to go behind Harden and Ant. But how far is kind of unclear. So we'll put him in bucket 6, which I think actually makes sense for him to be near Kevin Durant, who's going to be better per game, but much more flimsy on a can they stay on the floor situation. LeBron was right next to Sabonis this year, but I got to put him one bucket behind, not because of anything that I don't like about LeBron James, just because he's 1,000 years old. And at some point, there will be ever so slight erosion. Let's do like 4 more names, and then we can just put a pin in today's show because, again, I didn't want to do, like, we're not going to go through the whole card because all of these guys are going to move. Oh, wow. And news just broke as we're on air. Darius Garland just had surgery to repair his big toe, and he's out 4 to 5 months. Yowza. 4 to 5 months puts you right on opening day. Opening day is 4.5 months from now. Crap. Well, that's a pisser. All right, well, something to think about. Jalen Johnson was the next one on the list. This is a fun one because, I think Jalen Johnson has a chance to be up with the one above LeBron. So I'm going to put him in bucket 6 for now. But we have to think about, is there a health concern with him? But remember, he got off to, if you can believe this, he got off to a slow start this season. And then, I forget exactly when it kind of flipped, but if you look at like the first 3 weeks of the year, so it'll be like October 22nd, call it the first month. So let's do the first month. Where was Jalen Johnson after the first month? He was number 37, and it was actually worse than that if you go earlier. Let's go the first less than a month. Jalen Johnson was number 43, and if you go the first 3 weeks, basically, that puts him even farther down the board. He was number 69. But now, if you flip it over and you start on November 8th and you go basically until he got himself knocked out for the season, Jalen Johnson was number 14 because he started shooting high 70s at the free throw line instead of crap. He started the year terrible at the foul line, and then that number kind of came around a little bit. Overall, he ended up at about 75% foul shooting, which I think is probably the target marker for him. But that was the difference between being ranked like 50 and being almost a first rounder. The last 27 games he played before getting hurt, Jalen Johnson averaged 19, 10, and 5 with 2.6 defensive stats on 52-79 splits. He was awesome and like truly borderline first round. So I don't really have a problem with putting him here in bucket 6. I think he has to be behind Harden and Edwards because those two guys are team carriers. But, to put him in with Domantas Sabonis, with Kevin Durant, who's got the injury stuff, I think officially I can probably move Maxey down a bucket just while we're working on this. All of this stuff is going to come back. But, this is one I wanted to think about a little bit. Kristaps Porzingis was ranked 22. There's absolutely no way that he should be drafted anywhere near the top of the board because of the health stuff. So we're going to, that's actually not where I wanted to put him because that's too far down. We need another holding bucket. I don't think bucket 9 is even far enough down. You know what? Screw it. We'll put him in bucket 11 and we'll come back and check it again later. Evan Mobley at number 23. That's a perfect spot for him, which puts him here with LeBron and Tyrese Maxey, depending on how you feel about what those guys might do. Mobley's obviously a very different stat set. Maxey and LeBron are going to score more than Evan. But, you build your fantasy teams in a lot of different ways. And then Jalen Williams was number 24 this last year. Do I have enough confidence to put him up in bucket 6 with these guys, or is he one behind them? We'll put him one behind bucket 7 for now with the likes of LeBron, Maxey, Mobley. Those guys all kind of belong together. So this is where we're at right now. Again, this is a long way from done. As we get into the next few players, Kawhi, Josh Hart, Trey Murphy, Cade Cunningham. Cade's obviously going to be high up on the board, especially if you're in a turnover punt. Are these guys going to punch Jamal Murray, Dyson Daniels, Nikola Vucevic? Are those guys going to, who would you rather have, Cade or those guys? Obviously, it's going to be Cade. But Tyler Hero is in there. Ivica Zubac is in there. It's possible that this is where Dyson Daniels and Jamal Murray belong. Maybe they don't get pushed down much farther, but it still kind of feels like they might. And also, I feel like there's going to be some rearranging here in our first 5 buckets, because right now Anthony Davis is all by himself in bucket 3. And if I'm staring at the board and going AD or Steph or Harden or Anthony Edwards, based on all the things we just talked about this last year of trying to take the safe route, it's hard for me to make the argument to take Anthony Davis over those guys, especially in a head-to-head league. But, if you get 66 games out of AD, that's about as good as getting almost an entire season out of Harden and Anthony Edwards. So do we think he can play in an extra, 15 games next year? I don't really know, and I keep getting goaded into it. But at the end of the day, what did we learn this year? Be safer. Be safer. So maybe I end up combining all of these guys into one bucket 3 and everyone slides up. Or maybe Harden, Edwards, and Steph are bucket 3 and Anthony Davis is all by himself in bucket 4. Because I don't know that I could make the case to take Domantas Sabonis when Anthony Davis is still on the board. That's starting to sound more and more like the thing to do. But I certainly don't think that I would pass over Luka or Halliburton to take Steph, Harden, or Edwards. And so this is the way that you kind of go back and do it. So let's do that right now, just so you guys can see it. We're going to put Steph here. We're going to put Anthony Davis here. And now bucket 5 is fully vacated. And remember, these are not in any order within the bucket. Frankly, if you told me bucket 3 was Steph, Harden, and Edwards, that's like a, close your eyes and roll the dice kind of thing. I'm probably Steph. It's probably this order, actually, for me. Steph, Harden, Edwards. If I actually had to, really try to split it up into who do I want the most out of them. But they're pretty damn close to one another. All right, let's put a pin in that one for now. That's how you start it. You got it started. You've done the hard part. Now you just slowly go through and you drop names in, and then you go back and you do little adjustments later. And lo and behold, you've got a bucket or you've got a rough draft. Obviously, there'll be big changes during free agency. There'll be changes from the draft. There'll be changes from any trades that go down. There'll be changes from training camp. And then the biggest one, the biggest tweaks that get made to the bucket board is when we see Yahoo's pre-ranks, because then we have to decide, do we want to push a guy a little earlier to make sure we get them? Do we want to fade them against the Yahoo board? Because that does drive most ADP numbers, and we want to make sure that we get the guys we really want, avoid the guys we really don't, and that'll allow us to move the buckets around a little bit. What are we talking about the rest of the week? I haven't the foggiest. Maybe we'll do more bucket work. If you guys like it, let me know in the comments. Like, rate, subscribe. You guys know the drill. I forgot to tell you at the beginning, but whatever. It's the offseason anyway. I'm Dan Bespris at Dan Bespris on Twitter. Old Man Squad on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'll see you guys tomorrow. So long.